quiet an audience, just stand quiet in front of an audience. It really works very often. Because one of the errors of a public speaker is generally to be hostile towards the audience, including trying to force them to listen to you. That's not a great start for a speech, because then they hate you already from the beginning. So, but generally I choose passive-aggressive approaches when I'm trying to speak in front of people. It's always the audience. You can't ignore the audience. What do you think you can do with the audience to make sure that they keep listening to you? Yes, ask a question like I did just now. It gets very meta sometimes.
Or to be quiet.
Yes, as I try to demonstrate sort of passive-aggressive quiet,
yeah.
Because then they are, what's happening? What else?
Like, look at their eyes. Like when you look at, like you change, like
yes.
the place where you're looking. So
yes.
you look at him and then him, like to keep them like.
Yeah. Yeah. So to wake them up, to looking at them sleeping, and then they just like realize, oh, guys are looking at me, so I should be awake. Yes, definitely that works. What else can you do to keep your audience's attention?
To move around.
Sure, yeah, I can also, like, especially if I notice, that someone's not paying attention, I would, just like walk around, just like inconspicuously, like in front of them, even if I'm not looking at them, just, in front of them, and they will probably notice that, oh, the danger, it's coming closer, so pay attention. So yes, and that's the thing, you can then manage the audience entirely without being hostile to them. You don't have to, at no point do you have to, almost no point, like there could be super disruptive element, but at almost no point do you actually have to like shout at someone to pay attention to you. Because that's a sign that somebody is doing it wrong generally. Because what you really don't want to do is antagonize the audience, make it hostile. So generally you should not ignore them, and it's really on you. The onus or the focus is on you to work with the audience. It's not like the audience's obligation to listen to the speaker. So you should really be proactive in that sense. So there are some basic categories of what you can do. Like, be entertaining is that, I would add, of course, you have to say things that are interesting in the way in which you say them, and that's the theater part, that's the acting. Engaging, that's the questions, or at least, because that's one thing, like engagement is not necessarily just when you speak. Sufficient engagement is when you actively listen, which is a skill that's very important for if you want to be an audience to a debate or participant in a debate. You sort of should train yourself to be an active listener, so that when I look at you, I don't require anyone to speak constantly, obviously, but I see generally in your facial expression if you're, just zoned out and not listening at all, or if you seem to be paying attention. And if you're paying attention, then then you're engaged. So that counts as engagement. So I just need to make sure that that is a state of mind that you keep in for the majority of my speech. Then being personal. Being personal is also important, because again it comes to the not being a robot. What do you mean that it means? What does it mean to be personal as a public speaker towards the audience? Yes?
Be relatable.
Yes, and how would you think you can accomplish being relatable? What kind of thing you can actually do to be more relatable to your audience? Because the goal is to make it clear that you, again, are not a robot or an alien traveler from the future, but a human. So, how can one humanize themselves? Yes?
So, by using the words and myself and I think or something like that.
So generally, I would just say it's not like just using the words as much as it is referencing myself. I shouldn't be talking about myself in a third person, obviously, but also the thing is, I can maybe tell a personal story, like it's called anecdote from my life, because many speakers during their speeches do that. So I may tell you about how I screwed up at a presentation competition, because if I do that, I'm now allowing you to look into the backstage of what I'm actually doing with you in this presentation. So it's getting very meta. But the thing is, I will say the story like that, the anecdote, because I know that in that way I become more of like a human person kind of thing. That you can, then like, oh, maybe I was at the competition once and screwed up, something like that. That's the relating bit. So you should do things like that, because it's not necessarily, because that's the thing. It sounds maybe manipulative on the surface, but I'm not puppeteering you. It's just some things work and some things don't, and I would like to say maybe the personal anecdote anyway. It's just like it's good to know that it helps when I do so, and so maybe plan on doing more of them than I would otherwise. Because it is really about expressing yourself in that situation or trying to accomplish a certain goal, but still as yourself. That's what the being personal means. So you shouldn't be dishonest, because in a debating, it's very important to understand. In a debating in particular, you're not necessarily defending the side that you believe in. But that doesn't mean that you don't give your arguments as yourself. It's maybe a bit complicated if you try to think about it, but it's not all that complicated. You're still a kind of person who speaks in a certain kind of way and believes certain kinds of things. But if you're arguing for a position, then you can do that while still making it clear that maybe it's not something that you necessarily believe in. But you choose to maybe say it in a way like, okay, we're debating this, it's hypothetical, but I'm just trying to see what's the most logical thing, what's the most logical outcome, or what's the really trying to look for the truth. Like, of course, I have some sort of ideas, because some speakers would say it like this. I have, of course, some personal belief and position, but, for the purpose of this debate, I will, set them aside, because, the goal, what we're trying to accomplish here, is to try to figure out what's the truth, and I'm not afraid to challenge my opinion. So, let's assume that certain things worked out a certain way, and explore the consequences, or the implications using logic. And then, it's again, you're clearly your own person, you may even tell the people that you don't believe what you're saying, but depending on how you say it, it can still be persuasive, because people always trust a more honest person. So like of course the sort of parody of that is when somebody wants to be really manipulative and figures out that honesty is great to persuade people, so he's trying to pretend to be honest in a way because that's, of course, that's an oxymoron. Like, trying to pretend to be honest is always forced and fake. So what you need to do is really be honest. It's just you have to find a way in which you can honestly say the thing that you're supposed to say in a way that makes logical sense to people who why should that person be saying the thing, or okay, it's like there's one thing, what the person believes is one thing, but now we're doing something else. We're just exploring the options. We're not necessarily trying to indoctrinate anyone, because that's what debating is. It's a game. You're playing. You're exploring things. So in the context of personal speaking, whatever it is, again, especially if it's art, if it's acting or something, you should be yourself, because people want to know who you are and are interested in relating to the speaker, and people react positively to honesty. So that's why, for instance, I really don't think for instance, if you have a teacher kind of speaker and they're very uptight, or they are trying to look very authoritative, I personally don't think that's a very effective way of communicating things. If you look at in the world today, what are the most popular news in the world? Especially for your generation.
Technology.
Sorry, what?
Technology.
Technology. I don't mean by content. I mean which particular specific kind of news. Based on who does them. The style of news. Not what it is about, but what style of news is now popular.
The internet ones?
Well, that's super broad. That's everything. What on the internet, if you want to talk about it?
Informal.
Sorry, what?
Informal.
Yes, informal news. It's like the comedy news or the parody news. The things like Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, The Daily Show, what used to be the Colbert Report, and various other shows that are based around Comedy Central of all places, are now suddenly everybody realized that it's actually effective if you want to communicate unseriously, which means informally, which means you're talking directly to a normal human person. It's more effective at teaching people things, it's more effective at communicating ideas, it's more effective at doing anything serious that you want to accomplish. It doesn't have to be humor, just don't get me wrong. You don't have to be a comedian every time you speak, even though it generally is received very positively. Unless you're super lame. But even then, as I said, if you own it, then it's still funny. But the thing is, it can be any other affectation that's still human and personal. You can be a very solemn speaker. Do you know what solemn means? That's a kind of serious. You're very serious, but not like dry, boring serious. you're serious about, like, emotionally serious. Like, I'm invested in this issue, or this is a serious issue that we should really feel in some way about. Because of course, if you try to make a, like, it could be, cynical and still comedic. But if you want to, about the serious issue, if you want to make a compelling case about, like, for instance, like the extinction of various animal or plant species in the world, like, pollution of the world, something like starvation or famine or slavery in some places of the world. Of course, you don't have to be all jokey about it, and maybe that's not the most effective way of approaching it. But the idea is that you can allow yourself to express how it makes you feel, as long as, of course, you can hold your composure, meaning that you don't just, break into tears or something as you're speaking. But the thing is, you can allow your natural emotional reaction to what the issue is to show through by the choice of words, by the emotional affectation, by your acting, essentially. Because the thing is, public speaking is essentially an honest expression, ideally, with just the idea that to make it clear to an audience in a physical space, you have to exaggerate a little bit, because so that they can hear you and see you properly. So you just show more of what is actually your internal state, ideally. And that's what I think is the key component of being compelling. Because being compelling towards an audience essentially means persuading them about something, or that they believe you, that you're honest in what you're saying. That compelling doesn't necessarily have to persuade a person, but compelling means that they are believing in what you're saying, or at least they believe that you believe in what you're saying. So that's the effect that you have to ultimately accomplish if you want to be an effective public speaker. And it's really something that you cannot really get around. Like, you can't speak and ignore the audience completely.